I have more belief in Nashville than I do the stock market.
That's awesome.
When 100 people are moving every day, bringing 132 cars, I have more belief in the city of Nashville.
Evidently, a lot of other people do too.
Yes.
Hello, listeners. This is James Harper, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Real Estate Halftime Show. I'm coming at you here live in our secret headquarters in Hendersonville. As always, it's a beautiful day here in Nashville. Get ready for some awesome in-depth content with my special guest today, Tom Love, who's going to talk about building wealth through buying your next home. Stay tuned for the Real Estate Halftime Show, coming at you live now.
It's time for the Real Estate Halftime Show. Sit back, relax, and listen to Nashville's premier inside scoop to real estate with the Mortgage Extraordinaire himself, James Harper.
All right, welcome back to the show, everyone. We're super happy that you've taken this time to not only subscribe to our show, the Real Estate Halftime Show, on YouTube. The link will be below, and we'll also give it at the end of the show. But listen, we want to dive right in. As we always do, we want to get right to the meat and potatoes, and we want to talk more about real estate, what's going on in the Nashville market. But specifically today, we're going to talk about how to build wealth the right way through trying to buy a home, and how some of your money should or should not be invested. And these are only concepts and should not necessarily be taken as advice through like a financial planner. And so we're bringing on the show today, and he'll help elaborate on what I just said, Tom Love. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, James. Appreciate you bringing me back.
Well, we really appreciate you being here. So Tom comes to us with over 50 years experience in how to build wealth, dealing in the financial sector, and now currently coaches other financial planners around the country and has a little bit uniqueness to what he offers. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, about 20 years ago, I had discovered how wealthy people accumulate their wealth and the income taxation impact that distributing your wealth has. Not so much the impact on saving it, but actually how to spend it. And once I began to realize what the wealthy do with their money, it's not what most typical financial advice would share. So we understand the financial implications of the choices that we've already made. So for example, I will ask a client, would you borrow money from any source if you didn't know what the terms of the loan were or what the interest rate would be that I would charge you? Of course, the answer is always, well, heck no.
Heck no.
But if you have an IRA or a 401k or a 403b, a 457, a simple SEP, SAR/SEP, or pension plan, you exactly are already engaging in that. You are contributing to an account you don't know what you're going to owe. And hopefully the more successful you are, the higher your tax rate. So really, what have we saved? Most people will end up paying out of their tax planning more income taxes on the distribution side than what they've saved. And it's not that it's good or bad. It's just that it's not fully disclosed. So I believe in helping people understand what they're doing, getting a better head wrapped around the effect, and then letting them know there's an alternative to that. If you truly understood how wealth worked, most people would not continue the path they're on.
So what would be a great example of just in a simplistic terms, how that might be applied in some kind of form or fashion? It might be something as simple as going out and get a simple interest loan compared to doing it some kind of an alternative way. Break that down in the best way you can.
Well, I'll ask a client, for example, if you're going to write a check for $7,000, and whether you're going to put it in an IRA, 401k, or if you're going to make a house payment, that you really understand what you're doing. So if you're going to make $7,000 in payments, would you rather that go to something that will reduce your tax bill for life or postpone your income tax bill? And the answer is usually the same. I want it to reduce my lifetime tax bill. Well, if you pay your house off early, if you get rid of your mortgage, there goes the deduction. What you have maximized is the postponement. And if you want to truly succeed, want to earn more money over your lifetime, and want to retire in the lifestyle that you've enjoyed up to the day you retire, you're going to retire in the highest tax bracket of your life, possibly. And it's not that it's good or bad. It's just you need to understand what the rules of the game are that you're trying to play. And most people realize over time it's stacked against them. But as a financial advisor, when I was a fiduciary for 40 years, I was not allowed to talk about how income taxes actually affect wealth. I was not an accountant. Even though I paid hundreds of thousands of dollars in federal taxes, couldn't talk about it.
Isn't that interesting?
That's a little bit curious, don't you think?
It is.
So I believe the less you know about income taxes, the more you're going to owe. And the more you know, the less you're going to owe. And even if you buy whatever it is someone is selling, just understand what you're doing. It's almost comical to hear a financial advisor say, maximize your 401k, because when you retire, you're going to be in a lower tax bracket. I find it fascinating, James. I could say that all of my career. I couldn't put it in writing. And the reason? Errors and omissions insurance wouldn't cover the claim. I have no idea what tax bracket you're going to be in. And what most people don't recognize is when I make a contribution to a qualified retirement plan, I'm not only postponing the tax, what's worse, I'm postponing the calculation to determine the tax. And the more successful you want to be.
That's so good. Let's say that again. Let's say that in super slow motion. That's so good.
There are two things that qualified retirement plans do. They postpone your tax. But worse, they postpone the tax calculation. Wouldn't it be great if you kept your 1981 tax return where you got 10 cents on a dollar for every dollar you contributed? Going back to the IRS 40 years later and say, look, here's proof. I put in 5,000 and you gave me 500. Let me take the first 5,000 out and I'll let you have the 500 back. And they go, you owe 37% on that because that's the highest. If you're in the highest tax bracket, that's what you're going to owe. And again, it's not good or bad. It's just understand the rules of the game you're trying to play. And the more successful you want to be, the more detrimental typical financial advice will usually end up.
So how do we take all that, what you just said, and unpack that into how somebody can use some of the concepts of what you just said with their next purchase of a home?
That's why I'm here, because
Awesome.
While interest rates are ridiculously high, everything is giving us the indication they're going to come down. And for the people who are sitting on the sidelines waiting for interest rates to fall, the appreciation that's already experienced in the home you're waiting to buy is increasing. So the interest rate you think you're going to save is going to be offset by the higher price that you're going to have to pay for. And I would argue,
all right, case in point,
the value of the home that you're buying will appreciate at a faster rate than a monthly payment equivalent to what that house payment would be in a savings account. Whether it's going to be in a 401k or a brokerage account, it doesn't matter. A $300,000 home will appreciate faster than a $450 or a $900 or a $1,200 house payment, or a savings account where I'm depositing $1,200. And people, they don't look at it that way. They've been told if you pay your house off early, you've saved all this interest. Well, that's true, but you have also lost the interest on what that asset could have been worth. And because if you want a place to sleep at night with a pillow, you're going to own a home. And the only way to get equity out of your home, sell it. See, people don't recognize that. You cannot borrow equity out of your house. You got to find a financial intermediary to lend you money backed by the value of your home.
I love that. I mean, for those listeners out there, and I say this all the time, and again, I'm not a financial planner, I'm not a CPA, but some of the advice I always give to my clients is that money is never working for you when it's sitting in your house. It makes you feel good. It makes you feel like, oh my God, my house is paid off, or it's almost paid off. Oh, I've got $500,000 equity. Oh, I've got $400,000. But it means nothing until you decide to sell it. And it's not working for you until you sell it or try to get a portion of it out as a home equity line or a cash out.
But you have to qualify for that.
You have to qualify.
So you can't get your equity out of you cannot take the garage door off. I'm talking about the glass with the beveled glass on the garage door. You can't go down to the bank with the garage door and say, put this in your vault, lend me money. You know, they'll laugh at you, say, put the dang thing back on your house. We'll give you a loan backed by the full value of your home. And if you don't make the payments on the garage door, we own your home.
Right. So let's take, so we have a $400,000 house. Let's talk about appreciation a little bit. $400,000 house. And so the myth out there, I think we actually talked about this on our last show a little bit. So $400,000 house at an appreciation rate here might be worth what in 1 year?
That's your expertise.
I'm going to say 420,000. We'll use 5%.
5%. Okay.
So after the first year, it's going to be 420,000 in value.
How much was my house payment?
Let's just say your house payment is $1,000. Oh, well, it's going to be 2,500.
Okay, so what's 2,500 times 12?
Oh boy,
that's 30 grand.
30 grand. Let's say
I've
30
got
grand.
How much in equity so far?
You've already gained 20.
And I got to deduct most of the 30.
This is where I wanted to go with it. This is the nuts and bolts of what I want to do.
And I don't owe the taxes back.
So how much is that deduction going to help me? Because I'm writing off all that interest.
Yeah, tell me what your tax bracket is, and I'll tell you exactly. So if you're in a 30% tax bracket, then you get a third of the 30,000 back, 10 grand back.
Now you've just exactly broken even.
Exactly. And again, which do you think
you've
over
exactly
time,
broken even on paper?
Which do you think will appreciate more over time? A $400,000 home in the Nashville area or your investment in the stock?
Well, obviously the appreciation of home here in Nashville, for sure.
It seems to be that way.
Seems to be that way. And I think 5% is definitely maybe even conservative in some areas. But what I believe will happen if people sit on the sideline even longer, and of course, lots of people believe this, but if that interest rate does start to climb down, I think the statistic is for every 1% deduction in interest rate, that equates to 1 million more people out on the market, that's going to be looking for homes, and which increases.
So here's,
which increases the demand when there's no inventory already. So that $400,000 house is not going to start out at $400,000. It's going to start out at $420,000 or $430,000, where you may even have to overpay for that because there's going to be this huge influx of people coming in on the market because of the rates slightly coming down.
So here, let's do some math. And again, I'm no longer a fiduciary, and I'm not a CPA. I'm not an attorney. But let's do some math. John Q. customers trying to buy a house.
John Q.
was 4%.
Yes.
What was a $400,000 house at 4% versus 6.5%?
I would have no idea without having a calculator.
And I left my compounding calculator. But let's assume it's $300, $400 a month difference.
Mm-hmm.
So which do you so if I'm questioning buying a home for $3,600 myth,
hold on,
it's $300 a month.
We're going to pause because we can do that real quick.
And
We're taking a study break. This is a real estate halftime show timeout. Time in. We are back live. Where we left off is we wanted to do an example of a $400,000 loan amount and what that payment would be at 4%, and of course what it currently is at the current market rate, and we're just going to use 6.5% for this example, and how that payment difference may be keeping people on the sidelines, but why should it really not be? Talk about that, Tom.
All right, so let's back up just a minute.
Sure.
The majority of the people who are not buying right now are hesitant because of an interest rate. Don't know where it's going to go. But if I buy a 30-year at 6.5, it's not going higher than 6.5, regardless of who's in president.
Fixed. Yes.
It might go lower, in which case we can refi. But here's the issue. These people are sitting on the sidelines saying, my gosh, it was $1,909 when $400,000 was borrowed at 4%. And today it's $2,528. That's just more than I can handle. And the reason they feel that way is because they're strapped. When you look at what they're already doing with their money, if they're putting the extra $600 a month in their savings plan at work, I'm getting a current tax postponement.
That'd be 401k. I can say it. He may not be able to say it, but I can say it.
Deferred comp kind of plan.
Beep.
So the real question is, I can't afford the $7,200. And if you could, here's what is actually happening. You're losing potentially $20,000 of appreciation on a $400,000 loan, maybe a $500,000 house. And I'm losing, if it is growing at 5%, I'm losing $200, but I'm only going to spend $7,200 to get it.
So really what Tom's saying to all the listeners out there, get your pad and pen out And what he's basically saying in a simplistic term or simplistic language is that if you're already spending this money in some form or fashion, whether you're putting it in a savings account, you're putting it in a 401k, or you're putting it under your mattress, and you're already used to saving that money, then take that money, that extra $600 that you feel like it's going to maybe cost you in your budget to buy the house today, and let's shift that in a way that that actually works for you instead of against you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's take a look at the $7,200 extra.
Yes.
Is actually going to postpone nothing. It is 100% deductible if I meet the requirements. So the increase in the payment is an interest expense, which the $7,200 is still going to go against my tax return as lowering my gross income. Except I'm going to get $20,000 of appreciation if it grows at 4 to 5%. So what is my rate of return on $7,200 when I can cash out at the end of the year another $20,000?
So good.
It's 280, 270% return. And this happens every year. You're not doing it. So people who are on the sidelines postponing the purchase of their home for fear the interest rate is too high, it's still a deduction. If you shifted your distribution or your contribution from a qualified plan to the interest of a mortgage, it's still going to affect your tax return exactly the same. It's a deduction, except the postponement goes away. I'm not going to postpone the tax. I'm saving it. And my appreciation on my home is at a faster pace than if I would have put $600 a month into an investment. Will my account, if I started today at $600 a month, putting it into any investment, whether it's a 401k or stock, will it be worth $20,000 at the end of the year? Chances are not. It might be worth $8,000, $9,000, or $5,000 or $3,000. Which is more of a better deal, your home in Nashville or the stock market?
I think one of the things that I get asked all the time too is, well, what if the value goes down? And I'm like, that's just not happening. I historically, look at all the data going back. How many years you want to go back historically? And I'm sure there's some very bad areas of the country, but historically across the country, houses have never really come down. They've continued to appreciate.
They've had dips, and I'm newer to Nashville. I've only been here probably 10 years, so I did not understand or experience Nashville's dip in 2008, 2009. I was in Michigan at the time, and it was decimated. It was bad. Nashville had a dip. Los Angeles, Miami, Detroit,
Las Vegas
dove down. Nashville dipped, and it was a small dip and started coming right back up again. I have more belief in Nashville than I do the stock market.
That's awesome.
When 100 people are moving every day, bringing 132 cars, I have more belief in the city of Nashville than I do in the stock
Evidently,
market.
a lot of other people do too.
Yes. Put a fence around Nashville and say you're not allowed anymore.
They're coming in from everywhere, flocking.
Yeah.
So, well, that brings up a good point. What does that mean? If you're having 100 people a day and 132 cars, I don't know
what does that do to supply?
Yeah.
And it's
really,
only going to get
the
worse.
demand. The demand has become so overwhelming that when the rates do potentially drop, which we're in an election year, they will. Historically, they have. Don't have a crystal ball, but that's typically what happens. It's only going to get worse, which is going to drive prices up even a little more. And now there's this even more competition to have your offer go to the top of the list.
And I understand that people who bought a house 4 years ago are sitting on 2.8, 3.2 mortgages and going, I can't afford to sell. Yeah, you can.
On interest rate.
Yeah, you can. You really can. You got so much equity now. The key is to not necessarily, again, review this with all of the financial coaches you have. Maybe not put it down as equity. If you're looking for tax deductions and not tax postponements, and that I think is the first question that you should be asking of your financial advisor. Are you helping me postpone my tax, or are you helping me reduce my tax? And most will tell you it's a postponement. I'm not saving your lifetime tax bill. I'm simply lowering what you currently owe. And if you make the mistake of truly succeeding, what you've done when you were young is probably going to come back to bite you in the butt.
When you're, retirement age.
I realize I swim upstream, that I go against typical financial advice. But I've been doing this so long, I've seen so many financial plans fail because most people don't understand the implications of spending their money, not saving it. They're good at saving it, but the only reason people save it is to spend it. And this is why I have no desire to own my home. If there was a 45-year mortgage, I would own it. When my wife and I pass away, there will be a for sale sign in the front yard. My kids don't want it.
That's right.
Now, I do have a home on a lake in Michigan. I want to own that because that'll be passed down generation to generation. Yeah. But my home, I want the deduction. I want the bank to own my house, not me. I want to take my money and do something else with it. So good.
And so top 3 things that a new home buyer or even an existing home buyer, let's talk about new home buyers first. Because this will be good. Top 3 things if you're a new home buyer that can help make you understand why buying now is important, because right now I'm just renting. So what would be the top 3 things if I'm a new home buyer that I need to really understand right away in very easy terms? What would that be?
Call James Harper.
Whoa, that is a shameless plug. I love it.
Is that 1, 2, and 3?
Choo. We need the.
Do you have
we have drums.
All right, and I'm serious
true.
because the lending market changes daily, and I am not in the lending market. So the first thing you do is you need to find a trusted person on the lending side. That's number 1.
So
number
good.
2, you got to get a financial coach. You got to help somebody work with you to understand the implications of everything you're looking to do, the good, the bad, and the ugly. See, I got out of the recommending business about 8-9 years ago. I now just help people understand what they're doing. And when they really peel back the layers of an onion and see what they've done, it's usually not what they thought. I'll give you an example. I want to be debt-free on the day I retire. Yet I've got $1 million in a 401k where I owe somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000. And the more successful, the bigger that account gets, the more I'm going to owe. How can I say I'm going to be debt-free when I have an account? My largest cash account is in an account I don't even know what I owe.
Right.
And that's critical. Understand what we're trying to accomplish. Start with the end game in mind. If you want a truly financially secure retirement, it's got to be around getting away from income taxation unknowns. My son says it best. He says, you do not need a retirement plan to retire. You need money.
Yeah.
And where your money is so much more important than what it could potentially earn. And when you realize in a 401k plan in the state of Tennessee, you're paid 5th on the day you retire. 5th. Now you think that money's yours, but there's a federal tax. We don't have a state tax. There's no local tax, but there's an income tax potentially on Social Security. There's an increasing premium on Medicare, and your financial advisor gets paid before you do. You're going to be paid 5th.
That's a good one.
Now, if you live in California, you're paid 7th potentially. 7th in line. So you're building an account where we don't know what we owe, but the more success we want, the more ambitious we want to be, the more detrimental most typical financial advice will give.
So number 1 was call James Harper or your favorite lender of choice to really have a good understanding of why buying now is important.
Options.
Number 2.
What your options are.
What your options are. Number 2 was basically get with a good financial planner that understands your long-term picture and what really is important to you to have money today, and also how you can protect your money tomorrow.
And the biggest, which we left out.
Yes.
Understand your exit strategy.
Yes.
When all is said and done, what's going to happen to me when I do retire following typical financial advice?
Yeah.
And if I am in the highest tax bracket of my career, because darn it, I did succeed, look at the financial choices we're making today and the impact it's going to have on those questions we have in retirement. Because I believe that when I talk to old people today, elderly people today, about the things their kids could be doing, understanding how wealth works, they pretty much all tell me the same thing. I would play differently. I've got people bringing hockey pucks to a baseball diamond, screaming at the coach, I want to play. And they're in the wrong hemisphere.
That's good. I just want to play differently. So, listen, this has been awesome. I know we're going to probably have lots of feedback, comments, questions. How do they reach out to you personally if they want to know more advice or more knowledge about some of the content that we shared today?
If they wanted to reach me, it's just info@thebreakawayleague, info@thebreakawayleague.com, or
Okay.
tom@thebreakawayleague.com. That's the best way to reach me. And my phone number is 800-200-LOVE.
Thomas Love. That'd be 1-800-200-LOVE.
5683.
And also, for all the listeners out there, please like and subscribe to the Real Estate Halftime Show. We are growing in popularity. We want you to like and share this show. We want to get the message out. We want to continue to provide good content to our listeners. We appreciate you listening today. I appreciate you listening today. And we will see you next time on the Real Estate Halftime Show.